have you ever stopped to think about all the small, almost unconscious ways you try to shape your day? We're gonna dive into that really human impulse today, the illusion of control. It really does start with these tiny moments, doesn't it? The way you arrange your keys, the way you line up the perfect playlist for your commute. These are, as psychology puts it, tiny theaters where you are director, lighting designer, and audience all at once. It's such a familiar, comforting feeling, the sense that we can kind of choreograph our own little world. And, there's a real tenderness in that craving. It's not about arrogance. It's because the alternative, just sitting with raw, unfiltered uncertainty, can feel like the ground is literally dissolving beneath our feet. So what do? We build plans, we make schedules, we tell ourselves stories, all just to feel safe. So here's the thing about control. It's not something we can actually possess, like a set of keys. It's more like a posture we take on. It's that quiet, hopeful belief that, hey, if we can just manage all the little details, maybe, just maybe, we can hold back the chaos of the universe. Okay, and this right here, this illustrates the central conflict perfectly. We all live our lives with a map. That map is made of our plans, our expectations, our beautifully crafted stories about how things are supposed to go. But the world itself, that's the territory. It's raw, it's messy, it's unpredictable, and honestly, it's often completely indifferent to the route we've charted. But here's the catch. Confusing our map for the actual territory comes with a pretty steep hidden cost. When we cling way too tightly to our plans, we become, for lack of a better word, brittle, psychologically fragile even. And this is where the whole mindset shifts. A flight delay isn't just an annoying circumstance anymore. No, it suddenly feels like a personal failure. A project at work that goes sideways isn't just a learning experience, it feels like a bad reflection on us, on our competence. The world itself becomes this constant, high-stakes test of our ability to control it. And when the territory inevitably, and I mean inevitably, veers off our map, that internal monologue that starts up, it sounds a lot like this. Shame just kind of arrives, quiet but powerful. We turn inward and we start blaming ourselves for what is often just the simple, indifferent weather of chance. So this leads to some very real, very specific costs. First, we become brittle. Then we start to privatize our failures. We hide them away, we don't talk about them, and instead we polish these masks of perfect competence for the world to see. And finally, in this quest for total self-reliant autonomy, we can actually chip away at the very community connections that make us truly resilient in the first place. Okay, so that sounds a bit bleak, I know, but there is an alternative. We can absolutely move from this brittleness to a much more elastic way of being. The key is to think of resilience not as some trait you either have or you don't, but as a skill, something you can actively practice and get better at. Now, I know the word surrender can be a little scary and often sounds like defeat, like just giving up, but there's a really powerful distinction to be made here. On one hand, you've got the surrender of resignation, which is basically just throwing in the towel. But then there's the surrender of acknowledgement. And this is a strategic choice. It's a deliberate release of what you cannot change so you can reallocate all that energy to what you can. And that's the real payoff, isn't it? When we stop wasting all this precious mental and emotional energy trying to micromanage the unmanageable, we free up all that headspace. We suddenly have so much more capacity for our relationships, for living out our values, for all the small acts of meaning that persist even when our big, grand plans fall apart. So how do we actually do this? Well, here are 4 tangible little micro-practices. First, at the end of the day, just take an inventory. What was actually in your control today and what wasn't? Second, try a micro-surrender. Let a friend pick the restaurant. Take a different route home on a whim. Third, share your work when it's still messy with people you trust. It helps normalize feedback and imperfection. And fourth, create little rituals for repair, making it a normal part of life, not a sign that everything's a catastrophe. Ultimately, this isn't about following some rigid new formula. It's really just an invitation to shift your whole orientation and to start approaching life with a new balance of courage and, humility. So what does this actually look like in day-to-day life? It looks like elasticity, not some ironclad demand for certainty. It's holding your attachments to people, to ideas, to outcomes lightly. It's valuing the skill of repair far, far more than the illusion of perfection. It's treating grief not as some private problem, but as a kind of communal maintenance. And maybe most importantly, it's being able to say, I don't know, and feel curiosity instead of shame. This quote just completely reframes the whole idea of hope, doesn't it? It's not this blind faith that everything's going to go according to plan. No, it's a quieter, more durable confidence in our ability and our community's ability to respond to whatever happens with creativity, with care, and with connection. So, I want to leave you with a question to really mull over. What would change for you? I mean, in your work, in your relationships, in your own inner life, what would it look like if your default setting just shifted from a constant demand for certainty to a genuine embrace of curiosity? And one final thought to sit with. What parts of your life, what beliefs, what routines, what relationships do you guard so fiercely? What are the things you treat like heavy furniture that must never, ever be moved? Thinking about that isn't some test you have to pass. It's just an invitation. Really, an invitation to see how your very attempts to control everything might be shaping the entire texture of your days.